but everybody will have brilliant memories. So photography is about memories, which is past. Future is about new techniques. Correct? So how you are able to create that, which is where the 3D world is completely captured the content business. I'm coming to the important point here again, that advertising is still talking about the conventional route, whereas content is talking about placing your content with new technologies which allow to imagine things which don't exist or which could potentially allow your user to imagine themselves doing various kinds of crazy things, which is what typically marketers would want to talk about. This is for a brand called Wellspun. This gives you a perspective of how you're able to imagine a business. See, again, I spoke about a very important aspect that anything to do with photography is creating memories, whereas any technology is about creating imaginations and future possibilities. So when Wellspun is selling, these are carpets, which basically go in 5-star hotel lobbies and all that stuff. How do you sell even when your product is not ready? You build in brilliant content solutions using technology by saying this is how your floors will look like. It's selling an imagination and hence allowing you to dip into that imagination even before your product is manufactured. We spoke about speed to market, we spoke about the perils of digital world. The speed to market is pretty fast. So the marketer has to keep pace with that speed to market by saying that the product is not ready, but still I can show you that how it will look into your 5-star lobbies and hotel lobbies. So that's the framework to translating into practice by saying how do you create content enabled with technology, which is able to drive some amount of conversations, which is fueling your commerce. Okay, so it's a sort of a working example of what gets done. That's for Unilever, which is again in the cosmetic space. Beer, beverages, needs to look appetizing. How do you create that when your product is not yet ready? You do that by digitally creating 3D assets, right? It's again creating imaginations. And there's no advertising in this. Now the beauty part about it is that there are 3 forms of media. You have a paid media, which you pay money to buy. Okay, but you can only buy so much because nobody has infinite budgets, right? There's an owned media, which you own, like your websites, like your product brochures, like your point of sale, like your blogs, your social media handles. These are your paid media. You have a minimal cost to maintain them. The WordPress will cost you less amount of money as compared to buying something on Facebook, right, or Meta. And then there is an earned media. Earned media is something. So primarily, the world of advertising is shifting from the space of paid media to content, which is more about owned and earned media. Which means if I like this image and if I'm sharing it with a few of my friends on a summer day during an IPL match, chances are that you're game creating conversations which is leading to commerce. So you're fueling the content buckets for the consumer by giving them on media solutions on your own media, which means you just gravitate to. You might need a bit of advertising to get the consumers to your own media, like your Insta or your website or your social media. But that's something which is working in a beautiful way when it comes to the market space. Thumbs up, Starbucks, and deliberately choosing the brands which have actually tipped into these spaces because these are all real life case studies. They do advertise again, and again I'm not saying, let's not mistaken for the fact that advertising is only changing. Advertising, as I think so in the earlier session also, is advertising is insurance, it's good. But you also need mutual funds in your portfolio. You also need equity in your portfolio. You can't have insurance. Insurance is anyway about, secure income. But what about growth? Content is your growth market. That's the point. Swim up fully digitally created imaginative campaigns which work beautiful for the brand, right? And that's creating conversations, just creating that box. Watches, jewelry. So, which brings me to the next key aspect of the insights that, okay, that's fine. I understood the framework. I could also understand that I need to have some kind of technology. Who are these technology companies? So, I'm sure all of you would have heard about them. But most of us would not relate them from content space. So the technology companies are on the left hand side, The brands are on the right-hand side. Content technology companies like Adobe. Invariably we use Adobe either in the PDF format or signing in voices and all. That's how we use it. It's a brilliant tool to create content. Okay. So that's just one small example. I'll touch upon some of those use cases here. Autodesk. How many of you are from architectural/engineering background? AutoCAD helps you create a digital twin. A digital twin is nothing else but actually a digital version of your product even before your product is ready. And your digital twin is allowing you to create multiple content possibilities without ever dipping into the advertising part of this. So which is why I'm saying that the first or the second key aspect which as a marketer which we need to do, as an entrepreneur we need to do, is to primarily build bridges with these tech companies. That's again your actionable insight. Correct. All the brands which you see on the left are the automobile companies who are using it invariably. And I will touch upon some of the cases out there. But again, all said and done, framework, build bridges, not walls. How do you do that? It's important to understand. You walk the talk, right? You can't just leave somebody with a be a good human being. Of course, I know I want to be a good human being. What do I need to do to become a good human being is more important to me, right? So it's important here that you have to focus on the execution part of it. Because when you say tech is an ocean. I think so as an entrepreneur or marketing, you should focus on what are the execution capabilities of that technology for me. What can Adobe do for me? What can Autodesk do for me? That is where we say your creativity in thinking is simply hallucination. If you are not able to build it up with the right execution capability, you may have it in-house, you may not have it in-house. But that's a separate conversation. But at least you know you're asking the right questions. It will help you hopefully get the right answers and the right direction. Which is why I'm saying that you need to have the vision of what I want in my content, but you need to also have the execution capabilities either in-house or maybe identify somebody who's able to do that. And Adobe, Autodesk, these companies have a lot of partners, which we call it as SaaS service providers or something to that effect, who actually do that. IIM Future Actions and Present. Let me show you an example, and this is very nice example. This brand no longer exists now. And where it exists, sub-brand will exist. ETOS came up with a content idea, saying that the car is so special that your entire family will feel it. And look at the crafty way photography allows you to do that. They also use Photoshop. They also use photography. But look at the communication that look at the scale, it's absolutely ridiculous imagination. As a consumer, I would not relate with it, and hence invariably I will probably say that's stupid advertising. That's another version of that. Recently, the same company, Toyota, going slightly more innovative, using digital as a technology. Now, this is another version of that NCV comparison, which one is sort of conventional advertising to, and the right one image is not a form of an ad, it's a form of content which is published in the brochure. And the left one is an ad which is a paid media. So I'm just trying to give you an example that if you get your own media, which is your brochure, digitally enhanced and beautifully done, it has a chance of getting you more on media rather than your if you're spending money on buying newspaper. Yeah. So this is why I'm saying that you need to make friends with technology, build bridges, not walls. That's fine. How do you do that? You need to ensure that you have an execution capabilities. Otherwise, you end up with something on the other hand side. Yeah. So that's a small point which I wanted to illustrate with an example. Jeep, global brands. When Jeep launched in India with the brand called Compass, they came to us with a brief for content, not advertising, by saying it's not conventional 4x4. So the Jeep in US is a off-roader, 4-wheel drive, can claim any terrain. The difference between Jeep, what they launched in India, which is Jeep Compass, is that it's not conventional 4x4. So So it gives you capabilities, but not the conventional Jeep Cherokee capabilities. And hence, to garnish their product, or to make the product more sellable in the Indian market, they created sunroof. Okay? So the interesting product communication, it's not advertising, is about that it's a Jeep which can tame somewhat terrain, because that's what the SUV is supposed to do. But the beauty part is the sunroof. Right? That's your core of the messaging. How do you create that? You have two choices. One is conventional advertising route, optimizing resources. What they will say, let's take the Jeep to Khattuka. Let's identify some exotic locations in Ladakh or Kerala or Kashmir. Logistical errors, logistical challenges of getting a Jeep transported from point A to point B, security arrangements, weather permissions, availability of right amount of light, all those challenges which pose. This was completely digitally created, and that's a breakdown of this image. Without ever stepping out of our offices in maybe in Mumbai. The asset which you see is a digital asset, which means it's a CAD data. It's not. That's the reason I've shared with you the entire breakdown. So if I'm manufacturing a Jeep, I'm supposed to have the CAD data. How will I manufacture otherwise? So anything which is manufactured, so what's the value chain? You need to design it first, you need to engineer it, manufacture it, and then market it. What's happening is that in the old school, the designer, the engineering and marketing are sitting in separate corner offices. Nobody is talking to each other. But it's the asset which is owned by the organization. Because if you are marketing it, you need to have a product which is manufactured, and you can only manufacture when you have designed it. So the concept is that why don't you engage it at a design level, which is the umbilical cord of that particular product. So you take the design data, which is the CAD data, and you marry it with technology. I spoke about the build bridges, not wall, and you are able to create interesting context of a Jeep being imagined in multiple situations at a shoestring budget, at a massive speed to market, with utmost amount of flexibility, and without really costing you tons of money. So that's the difference between content and absolutely. So there is a human element which is involved into this. Which is the reason I told you that creativity without execution is hallucination. So there has to be a creative partner which you need to identify.
We can discuss this in Q&A session. Sorry.
You don't need to visit, honestly.
Please stop him. We can do this in Q&A, please.
Yeah. So that's one example. Put simply, and this is more from a little deep dive into this digital twin model, which is an actually emerging trend globally, equally being adopted in India by a lot of clients. What you see here is Tata Nexon, the latest launch. You get engineering CAD, which could work over 20 GT, right? And that's your design data. You get the design data where you get into conversion of that design to optimize it. So typically, what's the right example which I do recall? Optimization is nothing else but an engineering CAD is a manufacturing level CAD. Correct? But a marketing CAD is not a manufacturing level CAD. I'm not going to use it to manufacture a car. I'm going to use it to manufacture an imagination for the consumer. So I don't need the underbelly of the car. I don't need the engine. I don't need the chassis. So I will optimize it. So we do the CAD optimization, which is actually ensuring that the CAD is translated from 20 GB to maybe about 1 GB, 2 GB kind of a data. Why? Because the machines which process it are allowing you to build more creative solutions rather than more technology systems. So I spoke about creative first step. Once that's done, which is your file optimized, you have an unwanted mesh which gets removed. So you no longer need that part of the data. So all your underbelly of the car, which is an unwanted mesh, it gets removed to optimize it, reduce it to about 2 or 3 GB. Once that's done, that's your optimized car. Now I have actually walked the journey from making a design asset to a marketing asset. Which means what I'm doing is that I'm actually using the ears of a CFO. Because at Mechanicum, you don't need to do all those expensive shoots. Just give your design data under strict NDA and you have your marketing asset ready. Once you have done that, so that's an example of when you get the CAD. Right? But there could be a situation with clients like Hyundai, this new Creta, which recently launched with Shah Rukh Khan and Deepika. Now, Hyundai doesn't believe in giving CAD data because they think that that's your blueprint. Fine. So what we do is that we do a technical which is run in their plant in Chennai, and that's what we create with the point cloud data. Point cloud data is nothing else but creating a geometry out of the existing shape. Once you get that data, this is how point cloud data looks like. So this is a photo shoot of the car, this is the point cloud data of the car. Once your point cloud gets done, you get the individual parts model, like the bonnet, the chassis, and I'm deliberately showing the R as an example because all of us relate with it. Thankfully, in ice creams and beverages, you don't have a CAD data, so that's where the imagination becomes more important. But in this, it's a technology plus imagination. So you create the individual parts model using point cloud data. That's what it is. Your asset is ready. All within the span of give or take about 4 weeks to 6 weeks time. Once you have done that, you do overlaps. The overlaps is an important part because you can't sell lights. If your product doesn't look like that, consumer could sue you. You have to be pretty sure that your CAD data, which is the original manufacturing data, and your marketing data are overlapped and they are matching to 99.99% of precision levels. So that's your overlap, which you see. The extreme left is the CAD created, the middle is the process in the mesh, and the extreme right is the actual car. You overlap them, you ensure that your data is ready, and once that data has been created, you move in terms of getting, this is answering your question in terms of how imagination works. So this is about Hyundai Tucson, which is the earlier version of Hyundai which we launched. The two different personas of the car, there's a turbo and there's an adventure version. So if they wanted to show both the cars, slightly glamorous, road or tunnel version. This is the background which gets created in 3D. Once you have the background ready, you do basic light. See the difference at every stage of how a content is being created for the digital world. There's no photography. This place doesn't exist on Earth. Good. I'll show you the final image. It looks better on an app, on a micro screen than this, but believe you me, this is like one of the hero images for your social media. That's the video. All done within the span of 3 days. No reason for you to shoot, no reason for you to travel to such exotic places, hunt for those exotic places. But everything can be done in the concept of give or take 3 days time. You all remember, we shot with Shah Rukh Khan sometime about 10th of February or something like that. Sorry? Easier. So far. So again, the challenge is as an entrepreneur or as a marketer, the biggest challenge which you face is that you pay money to a celebrity who thinks he's bigger than the brand. And that's fine. Let's face it. Okay. So as a marketer, it pains to feel that is Hyundai the hero or Shah Rukh the hero? You have to live with the tantrums. You can't change that. He's still manageable. If he has to shoot, there was nobody else in the room except for our 12 people from camera and crew and makeup and all that stuff. Even the brand is not allowed to be in that. Somebody who's funding that campaign is not allowed to be in that. So the point which I was trying to make is, how do you ensure that your consistency of content comes alive when your digital asset is ready? So all we did was to shoot with him in a dummy car. Just the seats in a studio environment. 3D car comes in, and you have the final image which you have seen. And I'll talk about this work which we did with this is the breakdown. The 3D asset comes in, you have the celebrity, she's shot in the limbo lighting, and you have the final visual which is ready for content creation in terms of brochures and billboards and all forms of content. So that's again a power of, so I'm not saying that you need to only create product-centric communication. You could also have lifestyle or lifestyle content coming out of PD as a solution for it. This is the final output. All you did was to shoot with them in studio environment, and rest everything which you see undisputed artifact that we created in this case. That's the image which you already saw. So the input comes to you as sensuous sportiness. That's a creative brief, and you translate that into market solutions for that. Futuristic, Varna, that's your design, that's your final asset. So you're translating the brief exactly into a slightly more creative space. This is for Kia, the premium, the elder brother of Hyundai.
Can't tame it, can't ignore it, yet easy to own it. The Sonic HDK class with sunroof at 9.76 lakhs.
Kia, movement that inspires.
No such set which exists, no such home which exists. All done in a span of, give or take, about 1.5 days of working. You have the asset ready, you just take the asset, create a creative visualization, and your television worthy content. Right? That's the beauty which most of these brands are looking at. That's the another example of Kia.
They say take a broad view of life. How about a wide view? The Sonic HDK class with sunroof at 9.76 lakhs.
Kia, movement that inspires.
You have heard of Unreal Engine? How many of you play games?
Quick.
Not games in life, you all play games. Gaming, console gaming, PS5, Sony, Nintendo. The gaming engine is coming into content business. Unreal Engine is known for creating environments. So I could create this classroom, which would be exactly like this, and with AI, create a clone of myself talking to a classroom exactly like this without me physically present in Nagpur. That's how technology is shaping the market. That's a short point which I wanted to make. All the videos which you saw, both these videos, have been created using Unreal Engine as a platform, which allows you to take the brand, get the environment, stitch together, leave a story, push the objective, whatever your objective is, advertising or anything else. This is Adobe. It's a relevant example for a brand called Nagpur Nippon Steel. They had a sub-brand called Polar, perhaps derived with some creative imagination. So the brief was that we need a polar bear and the various steel parts which we manufacture. Quite a abstract brief. How do you bring that to life? So you first start with getting the polar bear from any imaging standpoint. And we are talking about explosion of the polar bear, the products coming out of the top. So you first identify various products, get them ready. Once you have the asset ready, you start getting the alignment done. Once you have the angle, the perspective, you get the CD render, and you introduce the AMNS frame, which is basically the red color of RC or on steel, where you are able to get that final asset out. So that's an ad which has gone out on all billboard, all brochures, everything which has been created, probably without needing ever to shoot a polar bear or to get. It's impossible. And I have a lot of examples to, in fact, I have a coffee table book which I could probably leave with somebody in the reception, which talks about some beautiful ways of how, and I'll just take a moment to draw one example which is closest to my heart, which is about an ad which was created for, have you heard of Piyush Pandey?
Yes.
Or maybe?
Yes.
Recall? So, I don't know how many of you could see. This is an ad wherein the brief was for very called marine adhesives. Adhesive which is used in shipping as an industry. And the brief from Piyush Pandey was that I am imagining two octopus fighting in the middle of the ocean for a chair. Power games in ocean. Right? Now how do you shoot it? You can never train two octopuses to fight for a chair in the middle of the ocean, and imagine the expenses. Everything which you see here has been digitally enhanced, and this was actually recognized by Pericol as one of the best ads created for them. Again, imagination, getting content, not very far from here. There is this place called Y, not far from Cali, Y. This is a Unilever concept. Unilever wanted to talk about it in a brand, saying that if you conserve water, it will save the earth. And the idea was that there are so many people who don't have access to water. They don't have access to showers or water. So we use it, which is smart technology and blah, blah. So this is an image, and this is a creative work which was done with a well in white. This is how the well looks like, and this is how the bucket was formed using completely digitally. This was shot, I'll be honest. This is not, humans can never be created so far, but this was created. So again, I'm talking about building it, the power of value machine. I can leave this book here just in case somebody is interested in going through more details. We have quickly another 20 minutes or so. That's again for Alpros, Tata. This is Unreal Engine which I was talking about. So Alpros is coming up with something called Alpros Racer. How do you show a race worthy car with all the communication? Now that's a content bucket. It's not an advertising bucket. They will not spend so much amount of money, but everything which you want to create has been generated using a full Unreal Engine platform. I'll touch upon more points quickly. This is more of an automotive use case. I'm not going to spend more time. But yeah, this is a good case study of how virtual reality is initiated by brands like Tata Motors. You already seen this. It's a good visual way of talking about it. is a visual which was created for Saudi Arabia market, sitting in Bombay, wherein not a single person ever traveled to that market to create for Fuso brand, because Daimler had a CAD, which is the Daimler Chennai, which actually gives us the CAD, and they export it to the brand in Fuso in Saudi market. They are trade for also, I'm going to quickly rush past because I think so I would rather want to have some time for Q&A. So that's something which is used in defense sector, which you see here, which is for manifest. All we get is the CAD input, and what you get finally is an asset which they are able to sell to Indian Army by saying that this is the product specific, that's the visuals which we have created, which is a good use case of digital twin. There's a lot of work which has happened, but of course for confidential reasons we can only talk about what's visually possible. Last actionable insight, AI, you all have heard about it, we spoke about solar. Now it's bound to disrupt. So whatever we saw, the first phase was shift from advertising to content. The second phase is content to digitized content, 3D using technology. The third phase is going to be AI, which is here and now. And I think so it's going to disrupt and both revolutionize the content. But how do we sort that out? And I think so one of the key baby steps which us as marketeers or an entrepreneurs take is to learn to work with AI. Right? And I think so that's very important because it's bound to disrupt a lot of jobs. So the question is that if we are not able to align with them, we have to start working with AI. Small baby steps which we have started taking in our company, and I'm sure they're not very expensive. You don't need millions of R&D budget. Start using Midjourney to create various prompts, which is not very expensive. It's a mobile tool. You can just download it and start creating multiple prompts for your product, and it will give you beautiful creative visualizations, which is allowing you to imagine your product in different situations. So this is what I meant by working with AI, which is a key action point, which doesn't take too much of either money or time. It just takes an intent. And if you don't have that intent, I don't think so we can play with anybody else but for us. Right? Midjourney is an open platform. ChatGPT, both from prompt creation, all of you who have already experimented with ChatGPT a bit. There are far more technical nuances of AI which we are not touching upon. Like Sora is a slightly technical, it's a beta space, so none of us will be able to do that. But what Sora is doing is we just created some bit of work, and we work with OpenAI in bits and pieces. This is the prompt which was given is a Mumbai monsoon. No such video has ever been shot, but this is completely digital. Now imagine if you are an umbrella brand and you want to prep up the people by saying, all you need to do is just create a simple video which is about 5 seconds and start feeding your social feed. See, you can't avoid the fact that media exposure is increasing. You can't avoid the fact that most things are happening. None of us can avoid that. But at least what we can do is to be more innovative and intent-led in terms of creating such content. That's serving in-house, a brilliant imagination, which is allowing you to be immersed in that experience literally. And this is a smart learning, golden retrievers, all created using prompt, which means nothing which you see here has been shot. Neither the animals, nor the surf, nor the girl dancing the trees. Last point, open to questions. I think it's important that what's an action point when you are working with AI? It's always preferred call to fail at your imagination, but then to say this is validation and I have succeeded in putting validation. If you follow that, chances are that you'll be able to adapt to AI much faster. Because the imagination is driving it, and it's opening up more conversation channels from a content standpoint. That's pretty much for me. So happy to answer any questions or please. What's that?
It's okay, I think. Ashish, you are bang on when you said that we should invest in good content which can lead to growth in your commerce. My question is from MSME point of view, because whatever examples you have shown here is for bigger brands who have got deep pockets to spend huge money in creating such a beautiful content. Okay, so how much should we allot as an MSMEs for creating the content? And the second part is that how should we zero on a create a digital partner who can do this, content partner who can do this? What can be the do's and don'ts while selecting a content partner?
Sure. Two parts to your question. First, it's a myth that big brands have deep pockets.
Okay.
It's just the other way. Okay. Big brands have a lot of money to spend on Shah Rukh Khan, but not spend on good content. Okay. That's a fact. As an MSME, one could be most smart in terms of saying that, listen, if my product is my hero, first you need to be convinced about the fact, and I really love the fact that even if I'm making a tank, glass door, right?
Glass door.
That's my hero. Makes sense. Your product is your hero as an MSME. I think so you would do well in terms of creating multiple use cases for your product using any of your widgets, using any of your AI tools. Okay. Of course, it needs some amount of time and iteration, but that's a very minimalistic investment which you are doing. Okay. So that's easy way to start. Also, one aspect or one layer of that statement when I say that brands don't have money, whatever content you saw is not advertising. Okay, and hence it doesn't necessarily need why advertising is expensive, because it's not the cost of content creation, it's the cost of amplification of that content which is expensive.
That's a different aspect.
Correct, but put together it becomes a media budget. So it's like आटे में नमक कितना लगता है, but nobody says namak is expensive, atta expensive. So the point is that you need to differentiate that when you talk about an MSME, you are not advertising your creative content which is not expensive. Point number one. Second, if your product is hero, you have a CAD data. There are, in fact, I know of few MSMEs who have in-house CAD designers who are able to use 3D and create multiple angles, multiple visuals of that particular product which they manufacture. And once they reach a stage which is allowing them to learn that whether the customers are liking it, not liking it, then they may put more money in terms of going to a partner, which comes to my second question. What should be your bells and whistles to identify that partner? I think so, you really need a right blend of creativity. I mean, as the gentleman also said, that you need to understand that how a sunroof of the car needs to be shown. It needs a creative perspective. So you need definitely a team which is having a little bit of creative experience and laced with the right technology, and to top it all, a project manager who is able to understand both. Otherwise, you would be left with the Chinese whisper from design to the production and all that stuff. So if you just look at 3 people in team, who's the creative guy, who's the producer, and who's the technical person, you should be in a position to do your checklist and identify that part. Sure.
So if you take a partner to do your content work, then you have your product. Now the content, who gets the IP address of the content? Is the person who's creating the content, or is the person who owns the product? Where does it go? Because in content, you have given all the ideas. These ideas can be replicated for any other product and by doing little tailoring work. So where is the IP address there?
Very good question. I generally rest with the brand.
Just
Rest with the brand. The reason being because whatever examples I've shown you, I've used technology to translate them. It's not my IP. I cannot claim that I've invented a AutoCAD or a Unreal Engine 5. I'm just using them. To give you another metaphor, I always use this with me and my team, that I'm the waiter in a restaurant, wherein a consumer comes and asks me for an order and the chef creates it. But can I own an IP on, let's say, a Nagpur missile? No. Right? I'm just creating. How I can make it more engaging is making it more tasteful, the experience is good, giving more varieties. But I can't own the IP. So the IP always rests with the brand. Point number one. With AI, the challenge will increase manyfold. Because what will happen is that AI is built on big data, machine learning. There are gigabytes and gigabytes of data which exist through our mobile phones on cloud. Siri in your home is listening to a lot of data which you don't even know. So that's going it back and going to Amazon or to an Apple. So the question is that when AI starts creating content, that time brands will have a challenge. The reason being because AI is not copyright. Tomorrow anybody can see your brand by saying that, hey, you use my image. So with AI, challenges would be very different. That time the IP definition, and which is the reason brands are still not embracing AI for a commercial content stand. Right? But in the current scenario, the brand should own the IP.
Sir, how smart are these AI tools? But if you feed the CAD drawing once, does the image has to be made frame by frame, or they generate the complete video around the product?
So as on date, the AI is not smart enough that you input the CAD and you should be able to do that. But I think so. Maybe if we meet next Sunday, it would be a different case. No, because that's how technology is changing. Say, I will not even talk about 1 day down the line. Maybe 7 days down the line, something might just happen where it's able to. Because it's what it's doing, it's turning consciously onto the past mistakes. So it's improvising, and computing power is increasing. Right? NVIDIA shares are going up purely on the back of computing power which they're creating. So I think so. There will be a time when you just give an input to the machine by saying, this is my CAD. That's the imagination which I need, and it should be able to turn out anything.
Minimum budget one should have, and say 80%. That does the then you can create a content for one.
It's a subjective question, but I'll still answer that. It could range from as low as 3 lakh rupees to as high as 3 crore rupees. It's a wide range because it depends on what's your use case, what kind of a requirement. There's a brand called Top Motors based out of Pune. It's an electric bike. Then we created a content for them which they just needed for a trade show, which was minimal about 5 to 6 lakh rupees. So it depends on the use case.
Sir, for a digital market,
Sorry?
for a digital marketer, what proportion should be emphasis on paid media and organic feed?
I would say a paid media should be not more than 30%. If you have 100 rupees to spend 30 rupees on paid media. Let the balance 70 rupees be invested in terms of creating your own media power. Like your websites need to be really good. Your social media needs to be good. You need to invest into a marketing manager who is able to manage that completely. So just get a fleet and then swell into that 3 C's, which is creating content, which drives conversation, which drives commerce, and which drives community.
My next question is,
I want to ask about the relevance.
12 noon now.
How you are imagining relevance to a product?
I couldn't get your question.
आपने बोला कि relevant जो है आपको कोई भी कंज्यूमर को आपको दे रहे हैं उसको relevant होना चाहिए. इमेजिनेशन का यूज करके आप कैसे बता रहे हैं, कैसे सोच रहे हैं कि वो जो प्रोडक्ट है वो relevance.
Imagination comes from insights. Imagination just doesn't come like that. It comes from insights. You need to understand the consumer insights, based on which you can build an imagination, based on which you can build a relevance. So the roadmap is pretty clear. You need to first have consumer insights in mind. Consumer को चाहिए है. I give an example of distillery. You are thirsty. So you will say पानी चाहिए. But then they have very smartly introduced distillery at such a top of the mind recall that वो relevance हुई आ गई कि हाँ ठंडा मतलब कोका कोला. Another relevance which was created. So to answer your question, the relevance comes from the imagination comes from insights. You need to have a consumer insight, pulse on it. You should know that consumers far better than anything.
So next one, last.
Brands can't create UGC. UGC has to be generic. So you have influencers who can actually talk about as a they can be quasi-influencers you think that they are users. So there are many ways to do it. One is an influencer-led campaign. Another could be your product is very good and somebody's liking it, people will talk about it. So the UGC has to again answer lies in consumer insight. If you have a pulse of the consumer insight, then you would be able to create a content which the consumer will say, this is what I want, and then the consumer will be happy to like it, share it. That's how UGC is.
No, please, no, please don't allow that. Next session is like.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
you.